Do you think that Apex pros cheat? Normally the idea would be completely dismissed, but what we've learned in the last few days may have tainted the views of the top professional teams forever. On November 29th, 2022, dropped a professional Apex player for Space Station Gaming tweeted out that he had learned about the concept of data mining for zones. Things instantly got out of hand as the entire pro, competitive, and streamer community pitched in with their takes. This was followed by Sweet Dreams, the IGL for Energy, and the entirety of Space Station Gaming discussing the matter on stream for about 1.5 hours before TSM's new analyst Raven joined the discussion, giving his take on the situation, explaining how it worked, while keeping a lot of information close to his chest and getting absolutely blasted by the rest of the members in the call. Throughout this call, he was saying that data mining the zones is not illegal and that he kept it secret for a competitive advantage. Raven was also very adamant about dismissing the term data mining and said that what they were doing was data collection and data analysis, which implied that they'd be collecting the data through gameplay and observation, but they were in fact getting the precise and 100% accurate data from the client itself. Monsoon pitched in, tweeting out and saying that you'd have to be a slow roasted peach pudding pie to think data mining codes for information is okay, as data mining would imply the unethical acquirement of knowledge as it is, saying that the identity of BR zones is specifically random. Luminosity Gaming's coach Pistillo weighed in saying that, oh, I thought data mining was against the TOS or something. That's not fair at all. But most of these reactions were knee-jerk responses from people who don't know exactly what advantage you could get out of doing this, or what data mining even is in the first place. And Monsoon went as far as to add that after learning more, it wasn't as bad as he had initially thought. So let's clear the air. What is data mining? In short, data mining is when you go through a game's files and data to learn more about it, and is a commonly used method by leakers to learn more about upcoming content before it's released. Data mining is also used in other video games to learn more about how they work, either as a hobby or in the case of fighting games, to learn about more intricate things such as a game's own hitboxes. With that, there's a precedent of data mining being used for a competitive advantage. There are entire communities within other gaming communities that are all about data mining, including Apex Legends. In Apex, there's the Apex Uncovered subreddit, which mostly covers data mined content, such as upcoming skins, characters, heirlooms, configuration files, and more. Keep in mind that viewing these files is a lot different than going through the game's source code. So yeah, you can find the blacklist for the final rings that can't happen through data mining, but as far as we know, the actual zone algorithm is way out of reach for even the most elite skin leakers. The information these analysts have been using is, I guess, publicly available for the ones who know what to look for and where to look. Alliance's analyst Colgin said that data mining wasn't that hard and that he had learned it in a week or so. He explained that the game does a few checks to decide whether an end zone is valid. What he calls the exclusion zone map is one of those checks, and in his opinion, he says that it was only useful when Stormpoint was first introduced, as it gave people a head start, but many can argue that it gives a head start on every new patch, especially as these exclusion zones seem to have changes made to them almost every new update. And as Colgin said, it is actually really easy to do once you know what you're looking for. Someone who leaks and biased shared how to scrape all the information and then place it on a map to create a version of what Carl Rindo had shared in this tweet, namely all 4 maps and where the zones cannot end. He also says that he will consistently update this every patch as the numbers do change between the patches. This is pretty useful information for any team and helps bridge some teams' unfair competitive advantage, because while some teams had analysts scraping this data and making the maps for their own teams, there even was a secret Discord where some pro teams were paying the big bucks just to get an exclusion zone map model of their own. A large majority of the competitive community did in fact not have access to this information, especially as everyone who knew about it or had access kept it tightly under wraps, which seemed to be one of the reasons why Carl Rindo made the tweet in the first place. Keep in mind, as far as we know, you can't actually mine where exactly the zones end, and to a certain degree it is random, other than some rules like this one, which dictates where zones can't pull. Many teams spend hours a day studying rings and memorizing how they will pull, and they probably feel especially slighted in this situation, but some would argue that teams sitting in custom lobbies and noting down rings is a form of data mining or analyzing as well. Nick Merckx also gave his take on the data mining.
Gee, I think we should play to the right, bro. I like the right. No, a little bit more right. 10 yards. No, a little bit more. Right here, G. This is where we should play. Yeah, no, it's not the green. It's not in the green. G, the green. Wallahi, look at the fucking green, G. Yeah, you see? Oh my God, bro. We gotta go north. You see that open area north? It's gonna end there, bro. I just know it.
The conversation quickly shifted and all eyes were on the teams that were known to have access to this information. Professional giants such as TSM, Alliance, FaZe Clan, all were known to take part in this. And punishing these teams for gaining access to this information would leave a huge black mark on the competitive Apex scene, which EA probably isn't too keen on doing. The case is completely in EA's hands, and there are a few rules that would sort of cover the situation, but keep in mind, data mining for a competitive advantage is not explicitly against the rules. In ALGS's Year 3 rulebook, they outlaw behavior such as using exploits, cheats, undocumented features, design errors, or problems in the ALGS, using any external software designed to give the competitor an unfair advantage, engaging in any other activity that disturbs the professional, fair, and respectful gaming environment of the ALGS. And then there's EA's own end-user license agreement, which states that you may not reverse engineer or attempt to extract or otherwise use source code or any other data from EA services unless expressly authorized by EA or permitted by law. But again, some pretty big esports giants were either abusing the access to the data mine zones or actively trying to abuse that advantage by scanning the game files, and punishing these orgs would reflect poorly on the ALGS and I guess EA and Apex as a whole. Many have actually argued that if it was only smaller, lesser known teams doing this, they would have the book thrown at them. And most people don't know this, so I really want to bring it to attention. Many rules in the ALGS rulebook are actively being broken, but EA just turns a blind eye. If you actually read through the entire rulebook, this states what you are and you aren't allowed to do. It even dictates what types of sponsors you're allowed to take and the ones that you are not allowed to take, and it is pretty airtight and does seem to operate on a punishment basis. As in, EA will let most things slide, even if it goes against the rules, as long as it doesn't cause a big stir, or I guess if they want to get rid of someone in the scene while having the legal rights to do so. And as this touches the professional scene, there's obviously a lot of things being discussed, especially behind closed doors. There's private DMs, and I'm sure that EA is also looking at the situation, and we also know that the private Apex professional discords are also actively discussing the matter. We know this because some members of those discords, such as Ascent's Kashera and Pioneer's Gnaski, went against the rules of those servers and leaked a few snippets. Kashera's largest point of contention was the fact that if this could be data mined, what else have analysts found that is being kept under wraps? Alliance's Coljin replied and said that they had found game-breaking things that were brought straight to Respawn. Kashera himself added that it's interesting how everyone always checks with the ALGS whether something is legal to use beforehand, but as far as the Pro League Discord was saying, it didn't seem like the data mine was ever directly brought to Respawn's attention. And of course, as far as Gnaski went, he just gave us a small hint of what was being said behind the scenes. Ultimately, whether you think the data mining scandal is a big deal or not, the responsibility falls on Respawn, because according to some of the leakers, this type of information doesn't have to be on the client itself, it could also just be on the server instead. If the data is available server-side, it can't be data mined without hacking the servers, which would be illegal not only for the ALGS, but by international law as well. And you have to keep in mind, data mining isn't really that big of a deal in Respawn's eyes. Kralrindo and other data miners such as Shrugtal and Biased are well known in the community and are even followed by some of Respawn's own employees. It would be strange to enforce the rules on one community while ignoring the others. In my honest opinion, as a YouTuber, grinder, and a very competitive person, I think this isn't getting enough attention. I think everyone's just trying to sweep it under the rug. Sure, data mining just tells you where the zones won't pull, but it practically updates every patch, and knowing that a house no longer is in play can be absolutely huge if you want to read circles. I think that the pro Apex community and even the average Apex player would make a much bigger deal out of this if instead of finding where the zones won't pull, the activity of data mining would find a directory of all active zone endings, or even the zone algorithm itself. And from what we've covered, if you could find the actual zone algorithm from data mining, it's safe to assume that top tier pro teams would act the exact same way, as in hiding information for the huge competitive advantage and never talking about it unless it was wrung out of them. In my opinion, it doesn't matter what the advantage was, if for whatever reason data mining would give you the exact zone algorithm and there was a grand conspiracy to abuse it while keeping it a secret, that probably wouldn't sit right with you because that will be an unfair competitive advantage. If that concept is crazy, then you can apply the same idea to what we've learned now. We know where zones don't pull. Sure, the advantage might not be as black and white, but any team good at zone reading can abuse this knowledge to increase their zone prediction accuracy by a very large margin. Sure, You need to be able to get to the end game, and there's a lot more decisions that lead to a win than just reading the zone correctly. But getting any type of advantage through digging through game files is inherently uncompetitive, no matter how large or how small of an advantage it may be. You could learn where all the zones can and can't end through sheer determination, either from playing the game or going into customs just to observe how the zones will pull, but it is very time consuming, and the zones change practically every patch. Most players know where the zones can and can't end, they just played it and learned it. But if we compare the Season 12 map from Shrugtal with the latest map we've seen from Crawl Window, there has been quite a few changes to where zones actually can close. And while some players have to spend time and effort learning and memorizing these changes, some players can just dig into the game's files and find it out themselves. I don't think there's going to be any bans, I don't think there's going to be any punishments, but Respawn needs to step in here and they have to ensure that you can no longer get zone knowledge by simply breaking into the game. I also think they should take a deep look and ensure there isn't anything much worse going on behind the scenes that we as a public don't know about. But if there is, you can bet I'll make a video on that too.